I wanted to begin this evening by not talking about the economy first, but to ask some personal questions of Del that would reveal to us his character. Some unusual personal questions, so I have 3.
I'm ready.
When we grow up, and as we're growing, we meet our environment, the people and the land and the city, the community around us. Could you tell us 3 things that especially affected you or influenced you in your environment when you were growing up, whether it be land or people or community?
Sure. I think I have an example maybe for all 3. People, let's start with that. Again, something a little bit different about growing up in the Roosevelt family than most people would experience. I was maybe 13, and FDR started the organization called March of Dimes that was very successful in eliminating infantile paralysis and polio. But during the 70s, it was still a very strong organization that had these annual fundraisers every year and such. And I think this was one of the first times that it really hit home that I'm probably from a little bit of a different family than most people, a 13-year-old. And keep in mind now, at 13, my hair was as long as yours. And I spent most of my time on the beach surfing in Southern California. Dad thinks it's time for me to start getting involved. So he invites me to the Beverly Wilshire Hotel for a big March of Dimes event. And he, of course, is sitting up on a dais like this. It's a big fancy dinner and everyone's dressed up to the nines. And so he's sitting here, and I'm out sitting with everybody, you know, the tables of 10, that kind of thing. And I don't know anybody else at the table. My parents were divorced. So Dad picked me up, took me out. I was kind of evening out with Dad. So I'm sitting at this table, taking all of this in. And so finally it's time for Dad to get up and speak about March Dimes and his life growing up as son of the president. Well, to my right, there was this guy in 3-piece suit, enormous guy. Of course, at 13, everyone was enormous to me. But this enormous guy, and we hadn't really talked a lot during the dinner, because again, I'm 13 and probably not going to sit there and carry on conversations with adults that I don't know. Typical teenager. So Dad's up there talking away, and he's going at it. This guy leans into me, and he goes, "You know Jimmy Roosevelt up there?" I said, "Yes, sir. I know Jimmy. I know Mr. Roosevelt." He goes, "Kid, I got to tell you something." He pounds on the table like this. He goes, not a very soft voice either. Everyone at the table looked around. He goes, "The only bigger son of a bitch than Jimmy Roosevelt was his old man Franklin." Pardon my language. So that was like a first little inclination that, okay, this is FDR. This obvious this pleasure that this man had experienced, or his family under, I don't know, maybe he was related to the Annenberg family. I don't know. But anyhow, that was quite an experience to me, and it was the first inclination that I realized that this man, that there was no gray involved here. It was very black and white. He was either extremely loved or vehemently hated. And I guess moving on to a social development, that was probably, you could maybe throw that in social, but more so in the way that we were raised in our family, and this is consistent through my dad, the way he was raised, his brothers, his oldest sister, Anna, and they passed it down, as far as I can tell, through my cousins, is that something that was I think, paramount, more than anything else in our family, was that at some point in life when you get yours, and when you get yours, when you make it, yours is going to be different from mine, Gemma, and Pat, you and I are going to, ours is going to be different. as everybody's out there. But for myself and my wife Jan, we feel that we're there. We're not retired. We're not, we have to both work for a living, but we live in a nice home. We have food on the table. There's never any problem with that. We have great health care, 2 beautiful, healthy boys, young men at this point. We have a vacation once a year and some nice weekends. And so for us, we've got ours. We're very content, very happy. Whenever you get to that point, then in our family, you then have an absolute responsibility to help somebody else get theirs. And we were raised in that manner, and we have, when we have, it's fairly irregular lately, maybe every 3 to 5 years, a family reunion. The first part of each day, whatever the activities are, anyone under the age of 16 has to go suffer through the Roosevelt stuff of some of the family elders will sit with the younger kids as soon as they're old enough to comprehend this. And we talk about these things, about how we pick our fights in the Roosevelt family, that are usually prompted by someone that we see that is either being taken advantage of because they have no choice, or even though they might have a choice and they're still taking advantage of. So that's kind of how we are, the things that shape me. And then beyond that, I think the third, if I were to come up with a third thing, that the divorcing of my parents when I was 12. In our family, starting with, I guess, my dad's generation is the only reference that I have. This has to do with parenting and the influences of parenting or lack thereof. When I was 12, my mom and dad split up. He remained in Europe. We came back to the United States. But even prior to that, to 12 years old, he was a congressman for 6 terms, so that's 12 years right there, but he retired when I was 3, so 12 years prior. He was a UN ambassador, so the schedule of an ambassador is hectic at the very least. So he was never really around a lot, maybe versus where some of you might have enjoyed a dad-son relationship. I never had that. And then, of course, the trifecta there is that he is the son of a 4-term U.S. president who was raised by nannies from a school, a place of time in a school of, the nannies raised the children. So parenting wasn't my dad's strongest suit. So I think that the effect that had on me growing up has directly resulted in how I interact with my boys, which they are it. I don't think I've rarely ever missed a practice, soccer or baseball, a scout meeting, a birthday, the things that Dad only ever made in my life. And I don't want this to sound poor, pitiful me, because it really is not. Because the end of the story is that whatever my desire was and I felt that I lacked growing up, I am getting tenfold back through my kids, through my boys, through James and Paul, through participating in their lives. They probably don't know it, but I'm vicariously getting the relationship that I've always wanted when I was growing up. So maybe those 3 things.